Hello and welcome to Hexed Encountered. My name is Joe. Today I'm going to be playing a PC game called Pacific D-Day by SGS, or Avalon Digital is their publisher, I believe. So this is basically a game that contains several campaigns from the Second World War Pacific Theater, all of them basically island invasions. So if I click New Game here, you can see we have Tarawa, Saipan, Tinian, Peleliu, and Iwo Jima. Just to kind of keep things simple, I'll play Tinian because that's the most basic of them. This game is very challenging, as you would expect. Those island campaigns were difficult, to say the least. I got this as a kind of an interesting kind of PC comparison to the D-Day at series from Decision Games. I just recently did some videos on D-Day at Saipan, which is the latest release. I've also done some videos on D-Day at Tarawa. That one was done by John Butterfield, who designed the series and did the first three entries. Joe Youst did D-Day at Iwo Jima and D-Day at Saipan. And so this game is obviously different. It's a computer game. It's more area-based, and so it's not quite the same thing. But it's the same, similar battles. There were D-Day at games on Tarawa, Peleliu, Iwo Jima, and Saipan, so that's 4 of the 5. Tinian, the one I'm playing here, is the only one in this game that has not yet been done in the D-Day at series. It may not ever be done because this was an easier battle than Saipan, and they were fought basically back to back because they're both in the Marianas Islands. So, same unit, 2nd and 4th Marine Divisions took part. So I will be playing as the United States. You can see here it says the Battle of Tinian was a battle of the Pacific Campaign of World War II, fought on the island of Tinian in the Mariana Islands from 24th July until 1st of August 1944. The 8,000-man Japanese garrison was eliminated, and the island joined Saipan and Guam as a base for the 20th Air Force. The 4th Marine Division landed on the 24th of July, supported by naval bombardment and marine artillery firing across the strait from Saipan. With the help of the Seabees' ingenuity, the Marines were able to land along the northwest coast. With its 2 small beaches and low coral, the rest of the island had coral cliffs up to 15 feet high at the water's edge, negating any assault plans. A successful feint for the major settlement of Tinian Town diverted defenders from the actual landing site on the north of the island. The feint withstood a series of night counterattacks supported by tanks, and the 2nd Marine Division landed the next day in the north. So you see here I have the option of playing human or computer, and then you for the Japanese you can play human, computer, or there's even a play by email version if you wanted to play with someone else that has the game. I bought this game on Steam. I don't remember exactly how much it costs, but it wasn't overly expensive. I'm going to hit start game. We'll get right into it. It's going to load. It's pretty quick. So first thing we have here is what they call the game options, and this is just where you can kind of make some changes to the historical setup at the cost of some victory points, which I typically do not do. So you have your historical setup. You can have more air support where you get 5 additional air units, extra replacements, and extra tanks. I'm just going to go with the historical setup. This game does have cards, so it's got a board game kind of feel to it. It does use, in theory, a dice roll-ish kind of mechanic. You'll see it when we do combat, but it doesn't actually show dice. It more just like shows some numbers. But you can you'll see that. And so the first thing is the card draw. You go through different phases. You hit this button to continue. That just kind of locked in my selection of the historical setup. Now we'll end the turn. The Japanese will go. The AI will kind of go through its thing. It takes a couple cards and plays its options, draws some cards into its hand that you don't know what they are, obviously. And then you move on. AI's thinking. Now we go into the actual game itself. So you get a little story on the battle. That just some background information. Tinian was famous because that was where the atomic bomb missions were launched from. Both the Enola Gay and Boxcar took off from Tinian to drop the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So this was obviously an important battle from that standpoint, as it put the 20th Air Force within the range of the B-29s to actually hit Japan. So you get a card every turn, Satchel Charge, and it tells you what it does. It inflicts extra losses on defenders. Okay, so now that that's done, we hit next. We go to the reinforcement phase. It tells you you get U.S. Navy fire support. That takes two forms. You have your battleships and you have your aircraft carriers. So we'll have some airstrike ability, and we'll have some barrages from the naval gunfire as well. So here we see reinforcements. This just shows you the naval gunfire that you have, basically. Go to the next phase. Now we're in the air and naval bombardment phase. So obviously I'm kind of zoomed out. This is as zoomed out as it gets. You can see the whole island here. Obviously these are Japanese units. We do not know what they are. And then Tinian has several airfields on it. We have one here, there's another one here, and there's another one here. So obviously the Japanese were using this as an air base as well. So what I typically do is, this is our battleship force, essentially. Now, you have 6 batteries that you can fire. I typically will fire like 2 or 3, unless I'm really trying to soften up a hard target. Down here at the southern end of the island, you have their redoubts here in the mountains. These have large bunkers, tunnels, systems. So at some point before too long, I'm going to start hitting it's these 4 mainly. I'm going to start hitting these 4 hexes with a lot of naval gunfire to try and reduce some of those fortifications, to make it a little easier once I get down there. Because this battle, once you get started, you can kind of roll down the island pretty quickly, assuming that you get decent rolls and you don't screw up strategy wise. So I'm going to drag my my battleship firepower out. You can drag it out, and then basically you can create a new stack by selecting them here. So say I wanted to split my fire 3 and 3, select 3, drag them from here into a new. You could even do it in the same area, right? So now I have 2. So here's our landing beaches. If I wanted to hit the beaches to soften them up, I could do that. However, not always, but generally speaking, I try to hit targets inland, because these are more heavily defended, and you get some kind of weird pathing sometimes with this. But I'm going to hit, see, it doesn't always kind of work, but so it's the program's a little buggy. Some wacky stuff happens occasionally. You just kind of have to fight through it. So let me do my air stuff now. Oh, if you hit this button, you can see all the different phases in the game. So this is all the way through the list of everything that we'll go through in a turn. So same thing, you click it to highlight it, and then you can see all the units. We have 7 air units. They have 14 strength, and it shows their maximum, because as they take damage, the strength points will drop. And this is their range, or the stacking value rather, and their range is unlimited for this game's purposes. They can fly. They can reach anywhere on the island. Same is true for the naval gunfire. You can hit any point on the island. So I'm going to take, I'll take 2. I'll go 2, 2, 3 to use my 7. So I'm just going to make stacks here in the carrier box of 2, 2, and 3. Now this one has 3, and I'm going to hit the airfield in hopes of maybe pulling out some of their fighters. Now we do have a fighter here. We just had a dogfight, and they actually caused one of the U.S. fighters to abort. So I'm going to send this guy here again. And so that time they took some fire, but they did not abort. So obviously you don't want to have an abort, but it happens. You can also look at your units that are landing. So this is obviously 4th Marine Division. You can see their logo right there. 3rd Battalion. And two from the 3rd Battalion. Well, 3rd Battalion of the 24th Regiment. 2nd and 3rd Battalions of the 25th Regiment. When you play Peleliu. All right, so we are ready to advance the turn here, or the stage, I guess. So it'll tell you what happened. You had the Americans took 2 hits and had 1 unit panic. So we move on now to the landing phase. So you get some, obviously you'll get some casualties as you land. 7 hits. It'll go through and apply them to the various units on the 2 beaches. And once that's done, we can continue. Okay. So now we're in the land phase, and this is where we will actually, of course, as you would expect, land our units. So we can take this guy and put him here, and take this guy and put him here. And that's it. We only have the 2 units to do, so we can move on to the next step. So now it'll show you what battles you have. Okay, so we have one at the Airfield 1 West, Airfield 1 Center, Beach White 1, and Beach White 2. So we'll do the airfield first because these are just bombardments and air attacks. Okay, so this is what the battles look like. You have your defenders over here. You have your attackers over here. There are various stages. As soon as I click bombard, it's going to start. And so we inflicted 1 hit on this small bunker. As you can see, you can look. You get 10 seconds between rounds, and then it's going to automatically continue the fight. Or you can click to continue. Typically, honestly, after the first attack by the air units, you don't get a second hit. I mean, you do occasionally, but typically you only get the 1. So if you don't hit them early, you're probably not going to hit them. See, then we didn't get a hit that time, so we might not get one at all. Well, we did get one, so we got a little lucky there. We got 2, actually, which is nice. Because I'm softening this up because this will be follow-on attacks in future turns will be to take the airfield because that's one of the first objectives. Okay, so now we actually have a landing to do. And there are no units here, but we do have a pillbox and some obstacles and so on. Now here's where you can play your cards. For the landing, I typically don't. I like to save my attacker cards for when my odds are a little worse. Down here you can see it says 86% for success against 14 for them. So I'm just going to skip. We start with artillery. It'll fire once. Nothing. Then we get the minefields attack back, and they inflicted a hit on us. Now we get the battle. And we should win. And hopefully not take too many losses here. Okay, so now we do, you have a breakthrough opportunity. So I could come up here and just land and push into the airfield right now, which might not be a bad idea because I have a pretty strong unit here. So I'm going to do that. I'll click here. It's going to drive up there. And now we get a new battle in the western edge of the airfield. So again, attacker cards will start off with artillery. Now this one's 55 to 45, so this one might actually be a little bit better. So we'll take the satchel charge and apply that. And for some reason, it always puts the odds lower after you do that, which makes me wonder how effective these cards really are. But I'm assuming they must benefit you somehow because I do use them. And we probably will end up retreating because the odds are not in our favor here. But I'm going to push on a little bit. Yeah, see, he's down to 1 step or 2 steps. He's down to 2 steps, so this is getting to be dangerous, although they're down to 3 here. And I didn't hit it soon enough, so we actually ended up winning, which was nice. So now we'll do our Beach White 2 landing, and it's the same thing all over again. Not going to use that. We'll just keep going. Fire, landmine, battle. So that was good. That was pretty quick. This one should be fairly easy now. And there you go. And then they also have a breakthrough. Now, you really only have the option to hit the other beach, which isn't a bad option because that will let me get closer to the airfield. So I'm going to do that. I'll push them up there, and then you get your results, just a kind of a tally of what happened that turn. And that is the end of that. Then you have air base return, which is just the planes going back to the carrier. Now you have air defense move. So since the Japanese are going to have their turn next, what you can do here is you can take your air units and say, okay, these guys both lost a step. But if I took, say, 3 of these and just drag them to one of these green highlighted areas, they can actually provide air cover in theory. And I'll use the other 4 for this one right here. And that's it. So now if the Japanese were to attack, they would have some air cover. Did not move any units. I guess it didn't work Sometimes it doesn't work, and I'm not completely sure how that's supposed to work, but we'll just skip it. It's not a big deal. That's the end of the turn. So now the Japanese will play. They get a card that says they get 1 victory point per turn until we control both airfield 1 and 3, so these 2 airfields here. Then they'll draw some more cards into their deck, and we move on. Now they have their movement. They're going to pull some guys back. Now they're doing an air attack, and this is why I was hoping I could get some air cover, because we have some Georges, Bettys, and what is this guy? Is this guy a George? Yeah, George. 2 Georges, I guess, and a Betty. And they did inflict a couple of step losses on me there. So now they're pulling their planes out. And that's the end of their... So now we're back to the card draw for turn 2. So I drew a forced march card, which will let me add 2 movement points to one of my stacks, which comes in handy later on when I try and move somebody quickly from the northern part of the island down south. Because typically what happens is you break out pretty easily from the top, at least in the times I've played this before. You break out and then you kind of need to get south as fast as possible. This one's a 19 turn scenario. Some of them are longer. I think Saipan is 30 turns maybe. Tarawa is a decently long one as well. Longer than you would think, at least. I've not played Iwo Jima. I've played all the other ones. I only played the portion of Peleliu. Peleliu is really tough, as you would expect. That battle had some horrendous casualties. So I'm actually going to stop here for now and just wrap this video up, and I'll do a further on video for turn 2 and maybe turn 2, 3, something like that, just to kind of keep... I don't want these to get really long. So for now, I'm going to sign off. So this is Hexed Encountered. My name is Joe. This is Pacific D-Day by SGS, and I will be back soon with a follow-up to this. And until then, happy gaming.